During the reign of Renzong Emperor, a group of European mercenaries traveled to China, searching for gunpowder. Later, the group is chased by the warriors of Mongolia. In order to escape from the enemies, the leader, William Guerin, told his men to cut the horses loose to lure their pursuers away, giving them the opportunity to escape. At night, while resting, the group contemplates how hard their journey in search of the gunpowder was. They lost over 20 men. Suddenly, a creature from the shadows attacked the group and killed all the remaining warriors. Only Irishman William Guerin and Spaniard Pero Tovar survive. The animal circled back again to attack, but William was able to strike the monster down and cut off its arm. Unsure about what they had just killed, the two decided to leave immediately, as their campsite was not safe anymore. They continued traveling the next day, but were found by the Mongolians once again, forcing them to run as the enemies chased them. The two eventually arrived in front of the Great Wall, on the outskirts of China, and were stopped by arrows that barely missed them. With few choices left, William decided to surrender to the Chinese instead of being captured by the Mongolians, hoping that the former could spare their lives. The commanders of the Great Wall were shocked to see the giant claw that William had brought with him, and Commander Lin demanded to know where William had acquired it. When William said that he killed the monster by himself, the Chinese commanders laughed at William, not believing a single word he said. However, strategist Wang thought that the foreigner's stories might be real, as the men's weapons and clothing were covered in the creature's blood. Before they could decide on the two men's fates, a scout rushed in and reported that they had spotted enemies from the observation towers, rushing toward the wall in great numbers. General Shao ordered his men to get ready for battle, and the two men were taken onto the wall, where a large army of soldiers in colorful armor stood by for the siege. William was impressed by the army, as the soldiers all worked together perfectly despite their different roles. What stood out from the rest of the army were the soldiers in blue, who were led by Commander Lin and composed of only women. They all marched towards the edge of the wall and prepared to battle using giant spears. The soldiers all waited patiently for the enemies to come, and their attention was drawn towards the far distance as a horde of green monsters charged towards the wall. General Shao ordered the artillery to attack, and numerous fireballs were thrown into the air, heading directly towards the enemies. The archers also began firing at the monsters, showering them with arrows and killing many of the creatures. The monsters roared furiously as they ran closer to the giant wall, eventually reaching the base. The women in blue armor began to drop down towards the creatures, striking the enemies with their spears while the men pulled them back up. Despite their tremendous efforts, many of the soldiers were killed by the monsters. Very soon, the Queen of the Monsters arrives, accompanied by her numerous bodyguards. Strategist Wang saw this and told the general, who ordered the artillery to fire directly at the Queen. However, the bodyguards blocked the attacks, protecting their leader in the process. The Queen roared and began communicating with her minions, ordering them to change their strategy and use their bodies to climb the walls. The monsters obeyed and climbed the structure and began mauling the soldiers and throwing them. William and Tovar tried to break after seeing the danger therein. Surprisingly, they were released by another foreigner named Ballard, who cut their ropes. A young soldier named Peng saw his comrades being killed and rushed in to attack the creature, but was pushed back by the giant monster. Before Peng is killed, William jumps and grabs a spear, charging at the creature and stabbing it in the mouth. The monster pushes him back, but William stabs it again with Tovar's help, and the two kill the creature by piercing its heart. Tovar took a red cape on the ground and began attracting another monster like a bull, causing the creature to charge directly at him. This allowed William to kill it using an arrow, barely escaping the creature as it tried to attack again. After seeing so many of its minions killed, the Queen ordered the creatures to retreat. The monsters fall back, carrying the bodies of their fallen comrades so that the humans can't learn anything about them. The Chinese commanders approached the Westerners after the victory, and the two men dropped their weapons immediately to show their cooperation. General Shao praised their bravery for aiding the battle and decided to offer them a living quarter instead of locking them up. Peng went to William and thanked him for saving his life. The two also met Ballard, the man who freed them earlier, and it turned out that he was also here looking for the black powder 25 years ago, but was kept hostage as an English teacher ever since. The old man showed the two the mysterious black powder that they were looking for and assured William that there was more than enough for all three of them. Ballard proposed that they leave as soon as the siege begins because everyone will be distracted. Before they finished talking, strategist Wang called them for an urgent meeting as he found a magnet inside their belongings. Wang believed that the stone was the reason why William was able to kill the monster so easily during their first encounter, as the magnet may have interfered with the creature's mind. It turned out that the monsters were called Tao Tes, and they landed on Earth 20 centuries ago from outer space. Ever since that day, the creatures rise every 60 years to attack from the north of China, trying to devour everything so they can feed their queen in order to multiply. The capital of China has 2 million people and is only about 300 miles away from the wall. If the creatures obtain such large amounts of food, their numbers will multiply, and they will take over the world. General Shao noticed missing personnel at the West Towers and proceeded to investigate alongside Commander Lin. The soldiers went into their formations, but they were surprised that the monsters had purposely left the bodies instead of devouring them as food. The soldiers marched forward after noticing one of the creatures in front of them, but General Shao also saw the reflection of a second Tao Te from behind, trying to ambush the team. The two monsters attacked them simultaneously, and the general tried to fend off the Tao Te from behind, but ended up wounded by the creature after trying to save Commander Lin. The entire army arrived soon after, but it was too late to save their leader. With his last breath, General Shao declared Lin to be his successor and warned her to never underestimate the monster's intelligence. A massive funeral was organized as the people mourned for their leader's death, sending numerous candles flying in the air to light the way for General Shao as he entered the afterlife. Soon, Envoy Shen from the Emperor of China came to the walls, bringing records of the encounters with the monsters from 60 years ago. Apparently, the previous general recorded that the creatures became paralyzed after chasing the soldiers onto a mountain, where a magnet was also present, similar to William's. In order to verify how the magnet actually affects the creatures, William suggested that they capture a Tao Te using a hook, similar to how a whale is captured. However, Tovar is extremely unhappy with his friend's proposed involvement, reminding him of their plan to escape with the black powder. Strategist Wang began concocting large amounts of anesthetics and putting them on the hooks, preparing to capture one of the creatures alive. Soon, the Tao Tes began to arrive in numbers, trying to sneak onto the wall, and the soldiers defended against the monsters by attacking in their formation. Giant blades protruded from the walls and cut the creatures into pieces, while the warriors attacked the Tao Te. Lin ordered the harpoons to fire, and the giant hooks launched towards the enemies, hitting many of the monsters and trapping them with chains. However, the creatures soon realized the people's intentions to capture them and began ripping apart the hooks, all breaking free from the restraints except for one. At the same time, Ballard was trying to convince Tovar to leave the wall right now while the battle was ongoing, but the man refused to abandon his friend. William was also contemplating abandoning the Chinese army, but in the last moment, decided to return and help the commanders capture the last Tao Te that was in chains. In order to isolate the creature from the others, the army fired numerous bombs around the monster, creating a field of flames that surrounded the entire area. Realizing that the chains wouldn't last much longer, William dropped down into the fields by sliding across the metals and found the monster unconscious on the ground. He tied the creature up so that it could be retrieved, but was attacked by the enemies. Luckily, William was saved by Tovar, who blamed the man for not following their plans to escape. Their arguments were interrupted when more Tao Tes began to attack from the fog, but the two were able to kill the creatures together by shooting the monsters in the eyes. As the fight continued, the monsters began to bypass the wall of flames, surrounding the men and attacking them. However, the Chinese army fired numerous bombs, killing the Tao Tes with explosions and saving the men's lives. They put the giant beast inside a cage and began experimenting with the magnet. Surprisingly, as Wang approached the monster with the rock, the creature stopped moving, proving that magnets paralyze the creatures. Envoy Chen demands to bring the Tao Te to the emperor right away, despite Wang's protest, but the order came directly from the king himself. After the envoy leaves the wall, the army detects more movements from the monsters at the base of the building. When they investigate, they are shocked to see the creatures have dug a giant hole through the base of the wall. They did this during the previous battle, as the soldiers were distracted. Meanwhile, Ballard and Tovar are stealing the black powder and plan to escape, but they're stopped by William, who wants his friend to stay and fight for a greater cause. Tovar believes that William is blinded by optimism, as he thinks that the people have no chance against the monsters' armies. While they are arguing, Ballard knocks William unconscious, telling Tovar to leave his friend behind, as this would be their only chance to run. General Lin discovers the escape of the Westerners and is furious at William for his betrayal, even though William explains that he tried to stop his friend. Luckily, Peng vouches for William, claiming to have witnessed the man trying to stop the escapees. She orders her troops to capture the escapees and locks William in a cell so that he can no longer interfere with the army's plans. In order to catch up with the hordes of Tautés, Lin decides to use the hot balloons as a method of travel, but the inventions are not tested and pose great danger for its users. Numerous people died as they tried to ascend into the skies using the black powder as fuel. Peng released William soon after, and William rushed outside where he met Wang, demanding to know what was going on. The strategist told him that they had failed to prevent the Tautés from breaching the walls, and the general had ordered his release as she headed towards the capital herself. Wang told William that the only chance they had now was to kill the queen, as her death would also disable all her minions. Instead of leaving as Wang suggested, William decided to go after Lin so that they could save humanity together. Meanwhile, General Lin arrived at the capital, only to see that the place was attacked by the creatures. They tried to make it to the palace but were attacked by numerous Tautés. Lin was surrounded by the monsters as they roared furiously at her, but before she was killed, William rescued her by grabbing her into the air and using the grenades to repel the monsters as they flew into the palace. They were able to retrieve the Tauté that was captured earlier, and Wang decided to load the creature with bombs. They planned to travel inside the sewers and feed the monster before releasing it towards the queen so that they had a chance to kill her by using the explosives. However, their plan didn't go smoothly as the creatures discovered their location and killed the majority of their team, leaving Peng wounded but still alive. Suddenly, numerous Tautés charged into the underground tunnels, and Peng decided to sacrifice himself by blowing up the grenades, killing the monsters, and blocking the pathway as well. Not having any time to mourn, Wang opened the doors to the outside, and they released the monster that was tied up with bombs. The creature woke up immediately after the magnet was removed, and just like they planned, it began devouring the meat that was provided and ran to the outside, trying to give it to its queen. The three arrived inside a tower, and Wang stayed behind to guard the door using the magnet, as William ran to higher grounds with Lin, trying to get a clear shot at the bombs. The man launched the arrow at the queen, but the bodyguards were able to block off the attack as it bounced off and exploded in the air, alerting the monsters in the process. William went up the tower to try again, but the queen ordered all her minions to attack the buildings, causing all the Tautés to rush inside as Wang threw the magnet toward his teammates before being devoured alive. The man tried to shoot a second time, but it was still blocked by the creatures, and the arrow exploded in the air, allowing the queen to finally see her attackers and order all her minions to attack. With only a single bomb left, the two leaped out from the windows as they swung from the ropes, evading the Tautés that jumped towards them. William tossed the magnet at the bodyguards, and Lin threw the spear closely behind, allowing the stone to delay the movements of the creatures as the bomb landed inside the barrier. The queen tried to put out the flames, but a large explosion destroyed everything, sending all the creatures flying in the air. As the queen died, all the Tautés were immobilized and crashed to the ground. The humans won the war. Later, William rode back to the Great Wall and found his friend Tovar in the holding cells after being captured by the Chinese army. He told him that the emperor gave him a choice between Tovar's life or the powder, but William chose to save his friend because friendship is more valuable than material gains. William and Tovar ride off, escorted by the army, and General Lin looks at them from the walls. William looks back and knows that one day he will return. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.